Hi everybody, welcome back to this newest video snippet from Follet, the video novel. We're going to read the third section of chapter 9, and just to let you know, this particular part is not safe for work or children. So if you're at work, leave it till later, or put your headphones on. If there are children in the room, hustle them off to do something else, or watch this later. I think you'll enjoy it. If you're ready, and all the children and workers are out of the room, let's start. Here we go. Follet did the same and closed his eyes, letting the aroma and taste fill him. What's in the other little bottles, Meri? More to drink? You'll get to enjoy them soon, Follet, she told him. The 5 in the opaque brown glass bottles are mixtures of hemp oil, grapeseed oil, apricot oil, and almond oil. Each bottle is a different flavor: strawberry, raspberry, lemon, vanilla, and of course chocolate. Edible oils. The 6th bottle, the little silver one, is filled with my favorite edible lubricant. It's vegan, halal, and kosher, and best of all, it's cappuccino flavored. Meri hopped onto the foot of the bed and arranged the pillows so that she could lean against them and remain mostly upright. She moved her feet on the bed so that they reached all the way to Follet, one leg on top of Follet's right thigh and the other next to Follet's flank. He moved his legs so that they mirrored the placement of Meri's. Then Meri took Follet's left foot and pulled it to her mouth. She let his foot rest on her chest while she reached over to the chair to pick up a little brown bottle. She unscrewed the cap and poured a dollop the size of a quarter into her left palm. She screwed the cap back on the bottle and returned it to the tray. With her right hand, she took hold of Follet's foot. She touched the palm of her left hand to the top of his foot and spread the now warm, lemony-scented oil over his skin. She moved her fingers and palm of her right hand over the outer arch of Follet's foot and the fingers and palm of her left hand over his inner arch. She slid her thumbs under his foot and massaged the mounds of each of his toes in turn with her knowledgeable fingers. She let her right hand slide to support his sole, while the thumb and first 2 fingers of her left hand slipped between his toes and caressed the neck of each toe in turn. His big toe first, then his long toe, then his middle toe, then his ring toe, and finally his baby toe. Once she had oiled his foot, she moved her mouth to kiss his foot, beginning with his toes. One at a time, she kissed a toe, licked it all around with her inventive tongue, and then sucked the toe, letting it slide into her wet mouth, her tongue tracing the nail groove, and then the cuticle before slipping underneath to follow the loops and arches and whorls of the ridges of his toe print. After she had kissed and licked and sucked his toes, she kissed them one by one, starting with his baby toe, singing Little P, Peterloo, Aussie Nossie, Tootsie Tossie, and a great big Appa Sasso and burst into a fit of giggling. Then she put down his left foot and wiggled around to attend to his right foot. Follet reached out to the tray on the chair seat, took one of the small brown bottles and opened it, vanilla. He poured a large drop into the palm of his hand, let the aroma rise from the warmth of his hand, and then he stuck the tip of his tongue into the oil. The sweet perfumed scent was a pleasant contrast with the smoky flavor of the oil. Follet reached over for Meri's left foot, and when he found it, he brought it to his mouth and stuck his tongue between Meri's toes, covering them with his saliva, while his strong hands massaged the top and sole of her foot. Follet looked at Meri. Eyes closed, she was sucking softly on the big toe of his right foot, and the gentle pressure of Follet's hands on the reflex points of her foot, coupled with the wet, gentle pressure of his tongue around her toes, elicited a soft moan from between her flushed red lips. After a minute or so, Meri languidly opened her eyes and looked at Follet, her stare boring a hole into Follet's core. She slowly pulled Follet's toe from her mouth, letting her lips linger as he slid from her its warm caress. Then she pursed her lips and barely touched to the tip of his toe in a quick kiss. Follet, she breathed, I want you inside me. Follet and Meri hurriedly untangled themselves, and Meri lay back, letting the mound of pillows support her. She spread her legs, and Follet crawled on his hands and knees to her. He held himself above her, looking down, and slowly lowered his head to kiss her. She raised her arms to circle his shoulders and neck, and as they kissed, he lowered himself onto her, chest to chest, belly to belly. Meri wrapped her legs around Follet's thighs. Follet slid his right forearm under her back and used his left to prop himself on his forearm. He broke their kiss and looked into her eyes. They were the soft, luminous blue of the morning sky, and he could see her pupils gradually dilating as she gazed into his. She shifted her hips, and Follet moved to enter her. His hard cock throbbed and pushed forward. The head touched her labia. They were slick with her juice, and at his touch he could feel them open to grant him entry. He moved his hips to push farther into her, and her wet cunt closed about him and held him. As Follet moved into her, Meri never took her gaze from him and inhaled softly, her eyes widening almost imperceptibly as his hardness thrust deeper and deeper into her. She pushed toward him to take him further, to fill her, and then together in a dance as old as man and womankind, they carefully pulled apart. As they moved with each other, Follet saw only Meri's eyes and felt only her surrounding him. Meri never closed her eyes and lost herself in Follet's watching. Follet inhaled as Meri's pussy squeezed his cock and released him, only to take him more forcefully again. Meri's cunt drove her to seize Follet's hardness and drive her closer and closer, to losing herself in her need to possess him. As she impaled herself on his hardness, she longed to pull away from him so that she could take more of him in her next stroke. Follet moved his hips to push into her and touch every part of her vagina. Meri saw only his eyes. As their bodies spoke to each other, the lovers neared the point of release, and when that release came, Follet thrust deeply inside Meri and held her tightly. Meri pulled him to her and grasped him with an unexpected strength, and their eyes never parted. Follet came in a series of convulsive throbs. Meri cried out and spasmed as his spunk filled her, and their eyes never parted. Follet whispered, "I want to stay inside you." Meri hummed and stroked his hair, and in a small, soft voice she sang Billy Strayhorn's lyrics to a tune by Ellington. "Funny the way that I feel now. Can't keep my feet on the ground. Everything seems unreal now." Follet's cock softened. He pushed his hips into Meri to stay inside her. When he shrank so that he fell out of her, Meri smiled and moved her left arm so that she could reach between her legs. She pushed the tips of 2 fingers inside herself to coat them with their cum, and then raised her wet fingers to her lips and licked some of the goo off of them. Then she let Follet lick her fingers. And when he had taken their love into his mouth, Meri kissed him, her mouth opening to taste his spit and his spunk and her wetness. Follet's tongue found hers, and they shared each other. They held each other as they kissed, soft, unhurried necking. Lips on lips, mouths opening and closing as they learned each other. Meri kissed Follet again, and again, and again. And then she said, "I'm hungry." Follet moved his head to her neck and nibbled her there and murmured, "I could eat. Let's go downstairs and get something in the bar and have a drink." "What about Ernestine and Hazel's?" Meri asked. "Let's stay in," Follet suggested. "No Mustang Sally, no midnight hour, no soul burger?" Follet moved his lips to Meri's neck. "I've got my soul burger right here." Meri laughed and wriggled. "Well, even if we stay at the Commodore, I've got to make myself presentable." She twisted out of Follet's embrace, leaned back to plant a quick peck on his cheek, and bounced off to the bathroom. "I won't be a minute." Follet smiled and doubted that, but he had to look presentable too. He ran his fingers through his hair. He decided to dress conservatively. White khakis, a Kelly green Izod polo shirt, a braided English bridle leather belt with a small silver monogrammed buckle, and a pair of dark brown leather boat shoes with no socks. He went to the window and looked out over the Mississippi. The streetlights on the shore demarcated the edge of the river, and farther out Follet could see red and green running lights of big barges crawling through the night below white lights on the mastheads. "Hey, sailor, buy me some pie?" Meri asked in a low, throaty voice. Follet turned to her and smiled at what he saw. She wore a black T-shirt with a golden yellow triumph across the chest, faded denim hip-hugger bell-bottoms. "I cut them down myself and lowered the belt loops," Meri told him, when she saw Follet looking closely at her hips. A 2-inch wide alligator belt with a 1935 NFR Bull Rider winter belt buckle. I spent a little time up on Cripple Creek a long time ago. And doe skin moccasins. She had brushed out her wet hair and put it into a ponytail. A small Burmese pigeon blood ruby stud shone at her left ear. Ah, the joys of being a succubus. I can dream my wardrobe, whatever I want, whenever I want it. Follet walked to her and took her into his arms. "I'm not sure if I can wait to finish dinner and a drink or two to get you back up here," he said, and kissed her. "You're going to have to, Follet. My stomach is growling, but I'll make it worth the wait." She smiled and kissed him quickly. Meri took Follet's hand, walked to the dresser and slipped a key into her right front pocket and led him to the door of the elevator. She pushed the L button, and 10 seconds later the great brass door opened. They entered the elevator and into an embrace. As the wood and brass lift descended, they held each other, kissed, and gazed into each other's eyes. When the doors opened on to the lobby, Follet took Mary's hand, and the two walked toward the bar.